Usually, when we talk about reaching a goal or, achieving a certain level of success, there's this really ingrained expectation of a physical process.
Right, like something you can actually touch.
Yeah, exactly. Think about building a house, right? You draw the blueprint, you go buy the wood, you physically hammer the nails in.
And then eventually the builder just points and says, there it is.
Right. It's this very visible mechanical progression from effort straight to a result. It's safe.
It's comforting, honestly, because you can track it. You can literally see your sweat turning into a physical structure.
But then you take the stack of sources you asked us to look into for this deep dive, this whole landscape of wealth creation and human potential.
Yeah, and that hammer and nails approach suddenly feels, well, entirely inadequate.
Totally inadequate. Because we're looking at a process that is mostly invisible, right? We're talking about the unseen chemistry of the mind.
Which is, it's the absolute definition of unseen forces shaping physical reality. And for anyone trying to navigate that, the lack of a visible hammer and nails can be incredibly frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. So welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We've gone through the material you sent over. And our mission today is to extract the absolute core of this philosophy.
Which is pretty dense material, to be fair.
It really is. We're pulling specifically from Chapter 4 of Napoleon Hill's classic, Think and Grow Rich. And the focus today is entirely on this concept called autosuggestion.
Right, which the text strictly outlines as the third step toward riches.
Right. Now, you've probably heard of positive affirmations before. You know, the drill, standing in front of the mirror, telling yourself you're going to have a great day, or, I don't know, that you're a magnet for success.
A practice that, honestly, often leaves people feeling a bit foolish.
Yeah, a little silly.
And more importantly, they look around a few weeks later wondering why absolutely nothing has actually changed in their lives.
Exactly. Yeah. But according to the mechanics of this philosophy, most people are doing it completely wrong because they are completely missing the crucial psychological mechanism behind it. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's go.
To understand how to actually program the mind, we first have to understand the specific relationship between the conscious and the subconscious. Right.
Yeah, so to set the baseline here, autosuggestion is defined in the source specifically as self-suggestion.
Okay.
It acts as the agency of communication between that part of the mind where conscious thought takes place and the subconscious mind.
So it's basically the bridge.
Exactly. It represents all self-administered stimuli and all the sense impressions that reach the mind through our five senses.
So it's the bridge between what we actively think about
Yeah.
and the hidden machinery that's actually running the show behind the scenes.
Right. And that bridge is heavily guarded. The text explains that the conscious mind is designed to act as an outer guard to the subconscious.
An outer guard, like a security guard.
Basically, yeah. All those sense impressions you experience every single day, the news you read, the complaints you hear from people, the fears you harbor, they are technically stopped by the conscious thinking mind first.
All right, that makes sense.
And at that point, the conscious mind has the power to either pass them on to the subconscious or just reject them completely.
Wait, okay, hold on. If I have this built-in mental outer guard, why am I still constantly stressed about paying my bills?
That is the big question.
Right, like why do I have anxiety about the future? Is my outer guard just, terrible at his job?
Well, according to the core premise of this concept, yes. Absolutely, yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
The failure to exercise this failure to guard the doors of the subconscious is presented as the primary reason why so many people go through life in a state of poverty or misery.
So we have the control, we just don't use it.
Exactly. Nature gave us absolute control over the material reaching our subconscious, but we simply don't exercise it. We basically leave the door wide open.
So what does this all mean? Is the conscious mind basically like a nightclub bouncer who is supposed to keep the weed thoughts out, but he just keeps falling asleep on his stool?
That is a perfect way to put it.
And so all these negative limiting thoughts are just, waltzing right past the velvet rope into the VIP section of our minds.
Yeah, and if the bouncer is asleep, the VIP section is getting completely trashed.
Wow.
The philosophy actually uses a really vivid garden analogy to explain this mechanism. The subconscious mind is compared to a highly fertile garden spot.
A garden, okay.
And the thing is, it does not care what you plant. If you fail to voluntarily sow the seeds of desirable crops, weeds are going to grow in abundance.
Right, because nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. The subconscious mind will never just remain idle. If you aren't deliberately planting positive desires, it just feeds on whatever thoughts drop into it through neglect.
because we are accidentally planting weeds all day long if we aren't paying attention.
We really are.
Every time we casually absorb a complaint from a coworker or, doom scroll through terrible news online, the bouncer just lets it right in.
Yeah.
So,
If we connect this to the bigger picture, autosuggestion is positioned as the absolute only way any thought gets into the subconscious.
really, the only way.
The only way. No thought, positive or negative, can enter without the aid of this principle. So you are always using autosuggestion.
You're just doing it by accident.
Right, you're usually using it by default, seeding your mental garden with the anxieties and fears of your environment.
But here's where I get stuck, right?
Mm.
Let's say someone actively tries to plant positive thoughts.
Okay.
They wake the bouncer up, they hand him a list of good seeds, they recite their goals. Why do they still fail?
Ah.
Because I know people who do affirmations every single morning religiously, and their lives look exactly the same a year later.
Yeah, and this is perhaps the most misunderstood mechanism of the entire philosophy. The text explicitly states that reading a written statement of desire is of absolutely no consequence unless you mix emotion or feeling with the words.
Emotion. So reciting a dry grocery list of goals basically does nothing.
Nothing at all. It's completely useless. There is a specific historical example used in the source to illustrate this.
Okay, what is it?
Back in the early 20th century, there was a psychologist named Émile Coué, and he popularized a specific formula. People were taught to repeat the phrase, day by day, in every way, I am getting better and better.
Oh, I've actually heard that one. It sounds incredibly pleasant, honestly.
It is pleasant, but the warning here is that you can repeat that formula a million times, and without faith and emotion, you will experience zero desirable results.
Wow, a million times and nothing.
Plain, unemotional words simply do not influence the subconscious mind. It only recognizes and acts upon thoughts that have been well mixed with feeling.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think, for anyone listening. Because this exposes the fatal flaw in so much of the modern positive thinking movement.
Yes, exactly.
Robotic chanting or just reading a wish list is a total waste of breath. But why? Like chemically, what is actually happening in the brain when we just say plain words?
Think about it as a chemical laboratory. Your brain is constantly filtering out millions of bits of irrelevant data every day.
Right, it has to, or we'd go crazy.
Exactly. So if you just read a piece of paper in a monotone voice, your brain processes it as plain data. It's no different than reading a phone book.
Just background noise.
But emotion acts as a chemical catalyst. When you attach a deep, visceral emotion to a thought, the brain flags it as critical for survival or essential for your reality.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And in this framework, the strongest and most productive of all positive emotions is faith, absolute belief.
Does this mean we basically have to act like our own method actors?
That's a great way to put it, actually.
Because, if someone is currently broke, are they supposed to manufacture the actual feeling of success? The joy, the relief, the physical sensation of wealth long before it ever physically exists? That sounds almost delusional.
It does. It requires a profound suspension of disbelief, which is exactly why it's so incredibly difficult for most people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You have to emotionalize the words with absolute belief. Think about the opposite scenario for a second. Have you ever repeated a positive affirmation like, I'm going to get this promotion, but underneath your stomach is just tied in knots because you're terrified of failing?
Oh, absolutely. The words are saying one thing, but my body is completely in panic mode. I'm sweating, my heart's racing.
Right. And in that moment, your subconscious ignores the words completely.
Because the emotion is stronger than the words.
Exactly. It takes the feeling of panic, that raw emotion of fear, and acts on that. It plants the weed of fear even while your mouth is speaking the words of success.
Man, that's wild. So, knowing that we need to combine the exact thought, which is the seed, with deep emotion, which is the fertilizer, how are we supposed to actually do this on a daily basis?
Right, the practical application.
Because you can't just walk around all day trying to manufacture a state of intense delusional faith while you're, like, buying groceries or doing laundry.
No, you can't, which is why the philosophy provides a highly specific, very rigid blueprint for a twice daily routine.
Okay, walk us through it.
First, you are instructed to go to a quiet spot where you won't be disturbed. The text strongly recommends doing this in bed at night, just before going to sleep.
Wait, why in bed? Why not in the middle of the afternoon when you have lots of energy?
It actually comes back to the bouncer analogy. When you are lying in bed, hovering in that hypnagogic state between waking and sleeping, your conscious mind is exhausted.
The bouncer is clocking out.
Exactly. The cognitive friction drops dramatically, making it significantly easier to bypass your own rational doubts and slip those emotional seeds directly into the subconscious garden.
That makes perfect sense. So you find that quiet spot, your mental bouncer's relaxed, and then what? What's the next step?
You read aloud a written statement, and vagueness is the absolute enemy here.
No, I want to be rich.
No. Then, the statement must contain the exact amount of money you desire, a definite time limit for its acquisition, and a clear description of the service or merchandise you intend to give in return for that money.
That is very specific.
Very. And you repeat this program night and morning.
But the crucial part, the part that turns this from, like, just reading a book report into actual auto-suggestion, is what we could call the visualization rule.
Yes. The visualization is everything.
Because the source is strict about this.
Yeah.
As you read this statement aloud, you must close your eyes, concentrate, and literally see, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of the money.
Right. You don't just think about it, you experience it.
You hold your thoughts on that exact amount until you can actually visualize the physical appearance of the money.
And equally important to that is the rule of exchange.
Right, you can't just take it.
Exactly. You don't just visualize a giant pile of cash falling into your lap. You must also see yourself actively rendering the service or delivering the merchandise you intend to give in return.
I love that part because it really roots the whole thing in reality.
It grounds it.
It reminds me of how elite athletes mentally rehearse before, say, an Olympic event.
Oh, that's a perfect parallel.
Right. A gymnast isn't just sitting there daydreaming about standing on a podium with a gold medal around her neck.
No, she's running the routine.
Exactly. She is closing her eyes and visualizing the feeling of the chalk on her hands, the tension in her calves, the precise rotation of her body in the air. You aren't just daydreaming about holding a trophy. You are visualizing the sweat, the specific movements, the actual service you are rendering to earn that outcome.
What's fascinating here is the psychological brilliance of making this a multisensory habit.
How so?
Well, to make this permanent, the text instructs you to place a written copy of the statement where you can physically see it night and morning.
Yeah.
You read it just before retiring and upon arising until it has been entirely memorized.
It's total saturation.
Complete saturation.
You are systematically forcing a new thought pattern past the bouncer twice a day, every single day, while in a highly emotional state.
Yes.
But as you repeat this intense emotional visualization twice a day, what is actually happening inside your brain?
Yeah.
Because the author describes this process in a way that honestly kind of caught me off guard when I read it.
Oh, the trick.
Yeah. He says you are executing a psychological trick on yourself.
The word trick is used very deliberately in the text. It is purposeful, directed deception.
But why? Why do we have to trick our own minds? That sounds counterproductive.
Because the subconscious mind does not possess the ability to discern the difference between a vividly imagined, highly emotional thought and an actual physical reality.
It can't tell the difference.
It literally cannot. When you repeatedly force your subconscious to believe, because you believe it, that you must have this money and that it is already awaiting your claim, you are tricking it into accepting the reality of the wealth before it exists.
Oh.
And because the subconscious takes any order given to it in absolute faith, it is compelled to translate that thought into its physical equivalent by the most direct and practical media available.
Which means it has to hand over a plan.
Exactly.
And how does that plan arrive? Because, you know, a skeptic might hear this and think, okay, great, I visualize the money, I visualize the service, now I just sit on my couch and wait for a briefcase of cash to fall through my ceiling.
Right, and the philosophy is exceptionally clear that briefcases do not fall from the sky.
Sadly.
Sadly, yes. You do not wait for a definite plan before you start visualizing. You demand the plan from your subconscious.
Okay.
And when the plan appears, it will likely flash into your mind through what the author calls the sixth sense as an inspiration.
An inspiration. The text actually compares this to a direct telegram from infinite intelligence.
A telegram implies urgency, right? It's not a casual letter.
Yeah, it's immediate.
And the instruction regarding that telegram is absolute. You must act upon it immediately. When the hunch comes, when the inspired plan suddenly connects two dots you hadn't seen before, treating it with respect and acting on it without delay is required.
So no procrastinating.
None. Failure to do this is considered completely fatal to the success of the entire endeavor.
Wait, if I'm just visualizing an outcome, right? And demanding a plan from my subconscious. Isn't that just a fancy, dressed-up way of trying to get something for nothing?
That is the exact trap many people fall into, and there is a stern warning against it in the source material.
Okay, good.
There is absolutely no such possibility as something for nothing. You cannot cheat the subconscious mind, and you certainly cannot cheat reality.
So what is the actual price then? If the money requires rendering a real service, what is the price of getting the subconscious mind to work for you in the first place?
The price of the ability to influence your subconscious mind is everlasting persistence in applying these exact principles.
Everlasting persistence. That's a heavy phrase.
That is the toll you must pay. This raises an important question, though, for anyone trying this.
Yeah,
Are you actually willing to pay that price?
right. Because it sounds easy on paper.
It sounds incredibly easy to just read a piece of paper twice a day. But try doing it with absolute, unwavering emotional faith day after day, week after week, especially when your external circumstances are terrible.
Yeah, when your bank account is empty, it's hard to feel rich.
Exactly. It requires immense, grueling self-discipline to override that reality.
It really does, and I think that brings the whole concept full circle. Because to stand in a quiet room, close your eyes, and intensely feel the reality of something that isn't there yet day after day, well, you have to voluntarily suspend all of your adult skepticism.
You really do.
You have to basically have the faith of a child. You have to shut down all your cynicism and all your rational doubts, even if the instructions seem completely abstract or silly at first.
Because that skepticism is just the conscious bouncer trying to reject the seed.
Right.
He's trying to reject it because it doesn't match your current physical reality. The persistence is what ultimately exhausts the bouncer and roots the new seed deep in the garden.
Man, this changes the entire way we look at goal setting. So to bring it all together for you listening, your subconscious mind is working day and night, regardless of what you do.
Nonstop.
It's a chemical laboratory, a highly fertile garden,
Ah.
and it will grow something. The seeds are constantly falling. But you now have the blueprint to stop letting weeds grow by default.
You have the mechanics.
Right. You have the mechanics to step up, wake up the bouncer at the door of your conscious mind, and start planting emotional, highly specific seeds of your own choosing through persistent daily autosuggestion.
You are taking the reins of a biological and psychological process that is already happening automatically anyway.
Exactly. And that leaves us with a final, I think, really provocative thought to ponder on your own. We've talked extensively about deliberately planting positive seeds twice a day. But if our subconscious mind absorbs and manifests whatever thoughts are mixed with the strongest emotions, think about the media, the conversations, and the news we consume daily.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is a profound vulnerability.
Are we accidentally auto-suggesting our own limitations and fears by passively absorbing fear-driven, highly emotional content?
That is a terrifying thought.
Right. When you scroll through outrage on your phone, your bouncer is fast asleep. And those heavily emotional negative seeds are dropping right into your fertile garden. So you have to ask yourself, what weeds are you accidentally watering today?
It really demands a total audit of what you allow your eyes to see and your ears to hear.
It completely flips the script on the invisible chemistry of your own mind.
Hmm.
It turns out you are the builder of your reality, but your materials aren't wood and nails. They are your deepest, most emotional thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take control of your inner garden, and we'll see you next time.